Just like hot grits and hot takes, justice is best served on a hot plate. Welcome to Brunch and Budget, the show about personal finance and racial economic inclusion with your host, Pamela Capallet, a certified financial planner and accredited financial counselor here to take the bite out of your budget. Brunch and Budget is part of the Race and Wealth Network. I'm your sound provider, Dialect, and here's your host, Pamela Capallet.
Thank you, Dialect, and thank you, everybody, for tuning in. It's been a while. We are in a new place today.
We're in a new place physically, spiritually, emotionally.
Mentally.
We've got a brand new intro. We realized since we switched from being live to podcasting that I can't just be like, good afternoon and stuff anymore.
It's afternoon somewhere.
Yeah, somewhere, but you might be listening at 3 a.m, and that's fine. I'm okay with that.
Yes, but yes, we're in a brand new place, and mostly physically, I was talking about. We are recording at the greenhouse.
Yes. The heart of East New York, Stickum, Stickum. You
excited to be
can't
here.
say East New York without the Stickum, Stickum.
That's noted. Good to know.
It's like the opposite of the Candyman thing. That's how you ward off getting stuck.
Oh, okay.
It's actually not that funny a matter.
Yeah, no, I'm just laughing nervously now. Okay. All right, so it's been a while since we've had a new show, and we are super excited about this one. We actually, today, April is National Sexual Assault Awareness Month and Financial Literacy Month, and probably a whole host of other things because everyone wants to claim a month. But these are two very important causes that are close to our hearts, and we actually had the incredible opportunity to interview Tarana Burke, who's the founder of the Me Too movement at the Facing Race conference back in November 2018. And we wanted to talk a little bit more about what financial abuse looks like, what financial dignity looks like for sexual assault survivors.
Well, hold on a second. Let's back up and talk a little bit about, so financial abuse?
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Because, when we talk about abuse, it's your physical abuse, your mental abuse. And I don't think that people talk a lot about financial abuse.
Yeah, they don't. And that's the thing. When we saw Tarana Burke speak during her keynote, one of the things that she brought up was the idea of, justice for sexual assault survivors also includes economic justice. And acknowledging and recognizing and making sure that people feel financially safe and feel financially dignified when they come out of these situations. Because often financial abuse is one of the least talked about forms of abuse and one of the most common forms of abuse along with other forms. So I want to talk about the 4 different forms of abuse based on the National Network to End Domestic Violence. And we can go a little bit more into financial abuse after that. What do you think?
Sounds good to me. Let's do it.
Yeah. So there are 4 forms of abuse when it comes to domestic violence. The first one is physical abuse, which is the one that you see on TV, right? It's the one that probably is the most visible, the one that's most common. The purpose of physical abuse, or the point of it, is for the partner to keep their partner under control and instill an environment of constant fear, basically. And so it's the one, like I mentioned, that is the most common. It's the one that's most known. It's the one that, if it's present early in the relationship, it'll probably escalate and become worse and worse and worse. And it's one of those ones that does tend to sneak up on you, right? At first, it seems like that your partner is protecting you. And at first, it seems like, oh, I just, made them mad for whatever reason. And maybe this won't happen again. And it just continues to happen. And so physical abuse looks like hitting, punching, kicking, slapping, strangling, using or threatening to use weapons, shoving, interrupting your sleep, destroying property, hurting or killing pets. So a lot of very physical, fear-based, my physical safety is at stake kind of things. So that's physical abuse. The next form of abuse is sexual abuse, and it is pretty common in abusive relationships, but is also often not discussed. And so that's something that Tarana Burke goes into more in our interview with her in terms of what it looks like and, how to speak with sexual assault survivors when it comes to this, because it's one of those things, again, like the physical abuse is something that you can usually see, right? It's usually something that's a little more difficult to hide, and something like sexual abuse is something where it's designed to help. It's designed to make the survivor feel shame and humiliation. So to make that, there's a lot of feeling like you deserve this and feeling like, oh, this is what love looks like and things like that. And so the thing about sexual abuse is that it's something that doesn't show up physically on somebody either. And emotional abuse is another type of abuse that also similarly doesn't show up physically and doesn't show up in a way that someone can point to and say, oh, is somebody hurting you, right? And so that's another aspect of it. And this is something where this tactic is used to damage the survivor's self-esteem. And so all of these forms of abuse, maybe you're dealing with one of them with a partner, you might be dealing with all of them, but this is all designed to make you feel like you don't have control over your life and you don't have control outside of this relationship, or you don't have a way to get out of this relationship. So emotional abuse is, again, touches on the self-esteem. And this is, you may have heard of, the term gaslighting, making the person feel like they are at fault or somehow they're the ones that need to say sorry when they are in an argument or when the person is emotionally abusing them. A lot of it comes down to criticism. A lot of survivors of domestic violence actually have said they would rather be hit and physically abused than endure the emotional abuse that actually damages their psychological side of themselves and damages the ability to be able to feel like they can get out of their situation. I think that is a big part of it, making them feel like they're crazy, minimizing the abuse, blaming you for their behavior. That's the gaslighting thing. You're doing this to me. You're the reason why I'm so mad, right? And so isolating you from family and friends is a big thing. And often emotional abuse can be where it starts. And you feel like, again, that your partner's protecting you and they're taking care of you and they're looking out for you, right? The excessive jealousy is, oh, they just really love me. They just really value our relationship. And so a lot of the emotional abuse is where it can start, and then that can lead to physical abuse and sexual abuse as well.
Yeah, I mean, one of the tough things about all these forms of abuse is they're not very apparent at the outset, and a lot of them can be easily excused by a lot of the things that are simple things that you can let go of as a person, but also are things that are culturally accepted.
Yeah.
Which especially when it pertains to financial abuse.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And I think it's great that you said that dialect about this idea of it being culturally accepted, because a lot of these signs of abuse are also celebrated in a lot of our media and a lot of our culture and a lot of our pop culture. Oh, he's so jealous. Oh, that just means that he's really into me, right?
Mm-hmm. Or they're passionate.
Yes, he's very passionate, right? He always says sorry afterwards, right? And so then that leads into financial abuse, which the thing about financial abuse, so the study, there was a study by the Center for Financial Security that showed that financial abuse occurs in 99% of domestic violence cases. That's all of them. Financial abuse is not one that's talked about very often. It's the thing that keeps people physically unable to leave, right? It's the thing where when you take away someone's resources and someone's ability to feel economically independent and financially independent, that's where you really have someone feel stuck, like they can't get out. Situations where you don't have money, where you get an allowance, where I've seen situations where the survivor doesn't have a driver's license, right? They can't even physically drive away and leave because it costs money to get a driver's license. It costs money to have a car. It costs money to be on car insurance. And so financial abuse is one of the ones that is not talked about very often, but it is an extremely powerful tactic in keeping someone in a relationship.
Yeah, no matter which, because, all of these, as you're laying them out, they're all about the control and the power and doing whatever. If you are more swayed by physical violence, then that one will be the one that works. If you're more swayed by the emotional stuff, that one will be the one that works. But the finance thing, that's just always going to work.
Yeah.
Because if you can't move out, then you can't move out.
Right, exactly. And the thing is, the odds are that if you are experiencing financial abuse, your partner is most likely doing one or more of the other three. And the financial abuse is the way that they keep you from leaving the relationship.
Right.
Where you recognize that you are in a situation that is not safe for you, but leaving is unfeasible and also unsafe. Right? So that is, the financial abuse is one of them that seems to underlie all of the other forms of abuse. And it's something that also can sneak up on someone. So things that look like financial abuse, and we'll go into this more in depth after the first song, but giving you an allowance is a big sign, not letting you have your own money, sabotaging work opportunities, hiding family assets, running up debt under joint accounts, taking over all of the financial matters. And so this again happens really slowly, where it can be, I'm just taking care of you and I'm taking care of us. And hey, let me take this stress off your back, right? I'll handle all of the finances. I'll take care of everything. I'll just give you money when you need it, right? And I feel like that there is this submissive relationship that tends to develop when it comes to financial abuse. And I think that's why it's become more important, especially for women, to feel like they have financial control and to feel like that they have some financial independence. And even with clients who are not necessarily in this situation, I work with a lot of women who say that even with a partner, they want their own savings account. Mm-hmm. They want to know that if they had to leave, they could leave, right? And to maintain that sort of control, because you know, the physical abuse and the emotional abuse and the sexual abuse are all psychologically damaging. But when you feel like you actually can't leave, even though you know that you need to and know that you have to, that's really where your safety is compromised in a huge way. And that's really where, if you feel like you can't get out of a situation, what do you do then, right?
Well, and it's the one that's the most culturally accepted, so it's the least supported. Nowadays, when you find out someone is getting hit, then they're like, oh, yeah, you get out and we'll help you out and we'll work with that. But then when you talk about the money stuff, people don't want to get involved. First of all, we don't talk to each other. We don't talk to each other enough about money.
We don't.
That's always the constant problem. If we're talking to each other more about money, then we will have less of these issues. But then when it comes to blended finances, I've seen so many situations where one partner, and it's oftentimes the man, it's like, well, I've got control. I'm better at this. They'll even say, oh, yeah, he's better at this. So, I just kind of let him handle it and I don't think about it as much. Mm-hmm. And that begins the process of slowly taking away your access.
Well, and that's something, too, that's been culturally accepted for so many generations, right? When women were property,
exactly.
Right? When women were considered property, to women being stay-at-home moms, to actually not making any money, to having the other partner be the breadwinner. And it's interesting, too, because when I was reading about this, there are some situations that are flipped where the partner refuses to be the breadwinner and the survivor is the one who was the breadwinner in the family. So that's how they also financially strap them.
Well, that's what the ill thing is, that it's such a control thing to the point where even the person who should have the technical leg up because they're making more money can still end up financially constrained by the other person because they abdicate the control.
Yeah, absolutely. Because there are situations where the one being abused is making the money but sending all the money to the abuser. Mm-hmm. And they've structured it that way and created some logic around that where it made sense at the time. And now they're just in the situation where even though they're the ones working, they're not the ones actually controlling anything. And then to keep them in that place goes the emotional abuse and the physical abuse and the sexual abuse that goes with it.
Well, that often ends up being the justification.
Right.
Or why you're having the control of the finances. Like, you can't keep control of the other stuff going on in your life.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. So that was a lot, y'all.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Hug each other.
Yes. Well, and if you see any of these signs in someone that you know or in your relationship, it's a time to reach out. We have a number that we'll mention several times on the show, and we have resources, and Tarana Burke's website is metoo.mvmt.org. If you want national resources and local resources, that site actually launched this month. At the time of the interview, they were just putting it together, and they launched it just in time for Sexual Assault Awareness Month. So we'll definitely link to that in the show notes too. But there are tons of resources, especially when it comes to financial abuse, because it can really feel like that you can't get out of your situation and that you physically can't leave. And there are lots of resources that will help you be able to step away from it. The toughest thing when it comes to these forms of abuse is your partner will make you feel like they're the only ones that you have. And they have figured out a way to isolate you from your other friends and family.
Well, and I was going to say, for friends and family, if you have some suspicions, the isolation is usually a part of the big part of it.
Yes.
Part of the big part of it. The big part of it.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. It's the sign that, hey, I haven't seen this person in a while. Hey, what's going on? It's definitely time to start asking those questions. So if you're
Yeah, if you are wanting to ask questions, you can feel free to check in with us. But Pam's position as a certified financial planner has given her insight to a lot of the financial issues that arise, but she is not an expert in these matters of financial abuse. I would guide you to the Tarana Burke's website, to the MVMT website.
Yeah, MeTooMVMT.org has a ton of resources, and also the National Domestic Violence Hotline, 1-800-799-SAFE. is a big resource. If you're experiencing it or you know someone who is, that's a number to call.
Yeah, call them, talk to somebody.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think the thing to keep in mind is even if you feel like you don't have financial resources, you do have friends and family. And I think that's a thing to remember too, is regardless of what your partner has made you believe or made you think, that there are people as resources that you can always turn to.
Yeah, DIY is a myth. We were just talking that over today, man. There is no DIY. It's DIO. We do it ourselves. And if you find yourself in a situation where you don't know you're ourselves, reach out to them. Trust me, they want to hear from you.
Yeah, they really do. So let's go to a song and kind of let all of this percolate a little bit.
Yeah, let's breathe for a minute and let's go to a song. Let's go down to one of your favorite places, Louisiana, for Elon Hornsby with her joint Enemy. And we'll be back in a minute. This is the Brunch and Budget Podcast. We are back. This is the Brunch and Budget Podcast. That was Enemy by Elon Hornsby.
Yes. And we today are talking about April is Sexual Assault Awareness Month and Financial Literacy Month. And we are talking about financial abuse, which is a form of abuse that is very rarely talked about and incredibly, incredibly common in domestic violence situations. Financial abuse, as we mentioned before, occurs in 99% of domestic violence cases. And it is one of the main ways that a partner can keep the person being abused, the abuser can keep the person being abused in their control, essentially, because when you can't leave because of money, you can't leave.
Yeah, again, financial abuse is the abuse of a partner using finances as a form of control, not just you spending your money badly.
Yes, yeah. And that's the thing, too, that we should address is that it's already hard enough to talk about money with your partner, right? And it is already something that is culturally a taboo, and we talk about that all the time. And it's also why we think it's extremely important to become comfortable talking about money, and especially talking about money with your significant other, and understanding what your own values are when it comes to money and when it comes to feeling secure and feeling like you can leave and feeling like you can get yourself out of a situation. We've talked on this show about fuck off funds before, and usually that's been in the context of, you know, being able to quit your job, right? If you hate it or something like that. But it's also in the context of being able to leave a situation with a significant other that isn't good for you, regardless of what that looks like or what that means.
Yeah, we're not saying that you're not in love. We're not saying that you don't care about each other and that you won't protect each other and have each other's back. And we're not saying that you need to have secrets from each other. In fact, it is the entire opposite. We need you to talk to your partners. Talk to your partners about what situation financially you actually want to have. How much involvement would you like to have? What type of security measures you would like to have? You know, what safe words you will have for the financial aspects of your relationships. And it doesn't matter if you decide at the end to blend your finances completely or keep separate accounts or have these other side things, but it should be a decision that you make together. And the ability to make those kind of decisions together is how you're going to make sure that you don't end up in situations that are financially abusive.
Yeah, absolutely. Because again, it's something that will sneak up on you, and it's something where you don't realize it's happening until it's really happening. And I think that's the thing to really keep in mind. And
there may be folks out there who don't even have the intention of being abusive with finances.
Right.
But they're better with their finances. They are more comfortable. They're kind of a bit controlling of things in general in their own life, and the other person may be more laissez-faire, and the next thing you know, we're 2 years into the relationship and one partner has no idea what to do with their finances and would have no idea how to leave if they wanted to.
Yeah, and it goes back to the word shame and embarrassment, and that's how so many people describe how they feel about their finances, and that's how so many abusers, those emotions are how so many abusers manipulate their partners in a lot of ways. And so when you can figure out and work through those feelings of shame and embarrassment around your personal finances and your personal feelings around it, and do that with your partner in a healthy way, then you can also see situations with clarity.
Yeah, and remember that all of these things on your back are not things that you have built. If you are currently sitting here like, I actually have no idea what my finances are right now, my partner handles all of that, I kind of know my salary, or you're not stupid. You're not worth less. You are not a failure or making a huge mistake in your life.
Yeah, not at all. And I think that's the thing to keep in mind, too, is that does happen with partners. And it's something that sometimes happens naturally in a lot of ways, where there is one partner who prefers to look at it more, or who takes more control of it. And it's more a matter of understanding where you are in the situation and understanding how your relationship with your finances plays into that relationship with your partner.
Yeah, we've done a couple episodes about, how to talk to your partner about money, money personalities and partners and things like that. And I would refer you to check that out. Go to brunchandbudget.com/personality and take the money personality test with your partner. See what your relationship is with money, and then see what decisions you can make to make sure that both of you have autonomy and a clear understanding of what each other is doing.
Yeah, because then if one person handles all the finances, but you understand what they're handling, that's great. Yeah, that's a good, solid relationship. And so we want to go into and delve into more what are the signs of financial abuse, because a lot of the signs can feel a little innocuous and feel a little innocent. So in the short term, financial abuse will leave survivors in a vulnerable place to be subject to physical abuse and violence, because when you don't have access to money, it can be difficult to plan for any kind of safety, much less, your physical safety and your financial safety. There's this great article on verywellmind.com about 3 different ways, the three overarching ways that financial abuse happens. One is exploiting your own personal assets or resources, your partner doing that. Interfering with your job is another one, and controlling shared assets and resources. So this is what that looks like on the nitty-gritty. So when it comes to exploiting your resources, this is when your partner controls or finds a way to control the money that you've earned or saved. So things like trying to access the money that's personally yours, using assets for their personal benefit that are yours without asking, taking your money or using your credit cards without permission, borrowing money or making charges without repaying it. And again, a lot of this stuff can be a slippery slope, right? Of, we just have that open relationship. Of course they have access to my wallet and can charge money on the credit card. And maybe my credit card is linked to Amazon and sometimes they just make purchases on my credit card instead of theirs. There's this feeling of entitlement to your money or assets, demanding that you turn over your paycheck or share your passwords and credit cards, expecting you to pay for their bills or obligations. And this is where it escalates is, using offers to help with your budget or financial decisions as a way to gain control over your finances, making you bail them out of difficult financial situations, confiscating your paycheck, requiring your paycheck to be direct deposited into their account, and then intercepting your bank statements or other financial records. So when it starts to feel like the money that's yours isn't yours anymore, that's a sign of financial abuse. Another way that I feel like isn't often thought about is interfering with your job and your ability to make money. That is also a form of financial abuse and a way to control how you make money and how you keep money. So,
those partners who like to break some of those social barriers and come in and interrupt you with that boombox over their head while you're at a work meeting.
Yep, that's on the list. Harassing you at work by calling, texting, or stopping by. And it feels sweet at first, right? They send you flowers. They check in on you multiple times a day. They surprise you for lunch.
They know your manager by the first name.
Yeah. And so again, it's the innocent boombox, so romantic, giant gestures kind of thing. And that's another way to sneak in forms of control of I always know where you are and what you're doing at all times.
For younger listeners, a boom box is a musical device where people would put analog sounds in, not like a tiny band, but analog sounds. It's not in like an explosive or something dangerous.
Yes, yeah. Exactly.
Just, hey, come on now.
That's fair, yeah. And they put these things called cassette tapes in them.
Oh, yeah, that's a whole nother story.
So when it comes to interfering with your job, criticizing and minimizing your job choice or career is a big part of it. Pressuring you to quit your job, even using your children as an excuse. Maybe you should just be staying at home. Your kids are being watched by a stranger, telling you where you can and cannot work, sabotaging or not honoring your work responsibilities, preventing you from working by hiding your keys, unhooking your car battery, taking your car without permission, offering to babysit and then not showing up. So a lot of different tactics to interfere with you actually being able to earn money and have that control is another aspect of financial abuse.
Oh, man, that babysitting one is so gross, man.
Yeah.
Using your relationship with your kids. Because then that also goes into some of the social norms that we were talking about that allow for these things to happen. It's like, you need to be with your family. That should be your most important goal. What you out there trying to make money, you greedy person. Just, all the angles at which they make you feel terrible about yourself.
Yeah, don't I make enough money for all of us? Yeah, there's a lot of stuff that goes into that. And, I feel like that's why we can't talk about financial abuse without all the other forms of abuse as well, because it all plays into each other. And there's a lot of emotional and psychological abuse that goes into having this financial control over someone and being this financially controlling. So the next part of it is, especially if you are in a relationship where things are shared, is controlling the shared assets and resources. And by controlling, what I mean is that you don't have any control over it. It's one thing to be the one managing it, and it's another thing to be the one that decides what happens to it without your say in it, right? And so one of the ways is criticizing every financial decision. So every purchase that you make, giving you a budget to live off of or giving you an allowance, making large financial decisions without your input, using joint finances in particular. So making big purchases, making big financial decisions, going into debt, hiding or taking funds in a private account, insisting that you share your income but they don't share theirs. So that's pretty common, where you're contributing to the joint finances, but your partner, for some reason, is not.
Yeah. What's mine is mine, what's yours is mine. A lot of folks practice that.
Yep, that's a big thing. And again, it goes back to historically women being property and women not having control over the finances of the household in general and not really knowing. I mean, it goes pretty deep. I remember when I was teaching financial literacy camps for kids, and 2/3 to 3/4 of the room, even between ages 12 to 13, were boys. We had to actually set up a special girls' camp to make sure that girls not only came to camp, but also would speak up in camp. Because when you have a room full of boys and you're one of 5 girls, you're also not the one raising your hand. And you're not the one volunteering for things, you know? And that's something that's ingrained so young and still ingrained even today.
You know, if you came to our first year of workshops at General Assembly, oh, by the way, we do monthly workshops over at General Assembly for adults. I don't think we've promoted our stuff and us. We need to be sponsored by our own selves and our things that we do. But if you went to the first year, because I think that we've kind of set a reputation where that doesn't happen, but there was always at least one dude who had some of these tendencies that are similar to stuff you hear from some of these financial abusers. And it's really funny because we would present ourselves as, hi, I'm Pam, a financial planner. Hi, I'm Dialect, a rapper. I wouldn't even say like other stuff that I do. It was like part of the whole process. It's a thing. But invariably, before I even got to discuss like why I belonged in the room at all, we would have gentlemen directing questions to me about specific financial concepts and being very derisive about Pam until Pam had to shut them all down. It was actually pretty fun to watch.
But it was something that kind of always had to happen.
Yeah, I mean, when I say it was fun to watch like the first couple of times, and then, you know, it quickly becomes a chore.
Yeah. So it is something where there is still the societal norm of men know and understand money better than women. And I think that's why it's also extremely important for us to be open about having this conversation with each other and talking about it with each other and talking about it with your partner, but also with your friends and family and people outside of your relationship. Because then you can also understand your relationship with money outside of the relationship as much as you need to understand what it looks like within it. That's incredibly important. It's also important because then you can start to recognize these signs much more quickly and be able to catch it before. I mean, I shouldn't say that because I think that it's when you're in love with someone.
Well, you know, you're going to catch it wherever you're going to be able to catch it.
Yes, exactly. And that's the thing, too, is you love this person. That's the thing that's so extremely hard is I know I have blinders on with the people that I love and the person that I love, Dialect. And I think that there's a level of trust that you expect and you anticipate from your partner and the expectation that they're being just as vulnerable as you.
But you should probably talk to them about these things, even with your high levels of trust of these people that you love.
You absolutely should. Yes. Yes, I've noted. I will. Another thing is, you know, when it comes to controlling the shared assets, we mentioned allowances before, and usually the allowances are restrictive. That's the big thing is I talk to couples and help couples come up with allowances for each other, but when only one of you has an allowance and when the allowance is unreasonably restrictive, that's when you know that there's something going on.
Well, when you don't have control over these things, when you don't have safe words about your money, you know, it's okay to have a restrictive allowance because you're trying to do something, build a habit in yourself, and you're relying on your partner to be your accountability partner and all that. But also, you can say, hey, let's just stop doing this because it's not working for me, and they need to be cool with that.
Right, exactly. It needs to always be a conversation. Another thing is requiring you to account for every dollar that you spend, so asking for receipts, asking for change. So really like controlling the dollars. Having a double standard when it comes to spending, so they're allowed to spend money on whatever they want, but you're not.
Well, and the keeping up on your stuff, you know, people have told you not to date your boss, But, even if you're dating your boss, don't date your boss. Your partner is not your boss. And if you feel like in any way that that's the relationship going on, that's something worth examining.
Yeah, where someone truly is like controlling and restricting you from being able to access things. So another thing that happens is withholding financial information. So passwords, account numbers, investment information, not showing you the whole financial picture as a couple. So not willing to share bank statements and things like that. Requiring you to ask for money is a big thing, or asking for permission before spending money, expecting you to consult on all your purchases, requiring that large purchases be in their name only. So that's another big sign. Car leases, mortgages, apartment leases, cell phones. That's another form of control, is if they have control over the big assets, then you're really stuck with nothing, even if you've put part of your money into it.
Well, and conversely, then there are also folks that like to put all the debts in your name and drive down your credit score.
Yeah, so that also leaves you with less access.
That's very common. I feel like most of us have friends or maybe have been in those kind of situations where these types of things have happened. I think those two in particular.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think another thing is making threats to cut you off financially when you disagree is another thing on the list. So using the finances as a bargaining chip in a sense, or as a way to say like, hey, we're having an argument right now that has nothing to do with finances and you have to agree with me or you don't get your allowance this week, right? And then becoming enraged over money and then using physical or emotional abuse as a way to continue to control someone's finances. That's another huge thing. So there's a lot of signs that don't feel like signs in the moment, and I think it's really difficult to step away and see and decide and recognize whether this is a relationship thing or whether this is an abusive situation.
I think something that's important to think and figure out is about your values. I think this is something that we talk about a lot here at Brunch and Budget, is that your values should be able to align with your actions. And if your current financial situation isn't allowing for your values to align with your actions, you need to examine the reasons why that's happening. And it may be some decisions that you're making, some habits you need to change, or it may have something to do with the relationships that you're in.
Yeah, absolutely. So that's what financial abuse looks like. Again, we want to repeat the phone number. If you're experiencing financial abuse or any type of abuse by your partner, please contact the National Domestic Violence Hotline at 1-800-799-SAFE. If you are looking for resources for any form of abuse, go to me2mvmt.org. We have the interview with Tarana Burke coming up right after this song, and she really delves into what economic justice and financial dignity can look like for sexual assault survivors, a lot of organizations who are doing this work, and what kind of policy change we need to look at. A huge thing that she talks about that I think we can't emphasize enough is really and truly understanding how to be empathetic in these situations. I think that a lot of domestic violence survivors are women, and the reality of it is they're made to feel small, and we're made to feel small in these situations. And even when you find yourself getting out, you may find yourself in a situation where people are condescending to you, or they're saying, how did you get yourself into this position in the first place? Mm-hmm. And the reality is this can happen to anyone. This can happen to anyone, and it's one of those things where it can sneak up on any one of us. And I think kind of understanding that and really understanding what the needs are of domestic violence survivors and understanding what kind of economic things they need to have and obtain to feel empowered in other ways, physically, emotionally, sexually, is a huge part of this conversation. And it's a part that's often ignored, because the other reality is a lot of domestic violence survivors were not in a good economic situation to begin with. And so they already felt trapped, and they moved into another situation where they felt trapped. And how do you make them feel empowered to take control of their finances and to feel in control of themselves physically, emotionally, and financially?
Well, I mean, and as we've heard from going through the stuff today, that surviving abuse is expensive.
Yeah.
It's going to wear down your finances one way or another, because as we've shown, it's mostly used in all violent situations as a form of control.
Yeah, and one of the things that Tarana goes into that I think is so important is that healthcare is something that's often overlooked, and being able to actually take care of yourself physically during and after you find yourself in these situations. So please stay tuned. The interview is incredible. We feel so lucky and honored to have been able to talk to Tarana Burke and have her on the show. Let's go to a song.
Yeah.
And then you'll get to hear the interview.
Yeah, before we get to the interview, that was recorded at the Facing Race Conference in Detroit by Race Forward. We're going to go to some music. We got a song by family homie Dizzy Sense. Got a new joint called Bronson. I saw on her SoundCloud, she said she's going to be dropping new joints every week. Hold her to that. Ask her for more stuff. You know she can do it. This one is produced by Rick and Thaddeus. And then after the interview, we've got another song by her former co-host at the What Now Sessions. That's in Brooklyn last Tuesday every month. Dope live jam. That is by Anna Diorio featuring Medusa, the gangster goddess, from Feline Science, and grandmother Karina, and that one's called Wild Woman. And thank you guys for listening to Brunch and Budget, and we'll check y'all next time. Peace.
Now listen to the smooth sounds of Rick and Thaddeus music.
Yeah. I grew up running through hallways as a nuisance. Nights opposite shook, but wasn't easy as ruthless. Some homie shelter living with the newest Benz, ruthless. Recruiting bands, line drums off of a few nicks. I never thought of roof Chris until the stakes raised higher than two dope fiends that's waving from where your roof is. Rooted in not knowing defeat. I blame Kunta to being fashionably late to trending, but that's a booster of self-esteem. Now I see it, I'm pretty nice. Attractive shorties with no talent get pretty likes. This is Henny White, please don't ask to stay the night, cause you like heavy metals that glow with city lights, huh? So who you rather be? Scholar or the dollar-made tragedy? I only ask it casually, since savages could trap you in the battle scene as casualties. I only pull a J to make my mind relieve the gravity. Only make mistakes because I haven't learned my pattern. See, stuck inside a cycle that my idols knew was past to me, and they just teach survival while hoping I'm good at mastering. I'm charging 50 an hour. Too many Tommies that'll ghost me just for chilling with stars. So I'm guessing charging 50 is power. The sweet life of Zach or Cody was coated with moments I broken by lighting up a split full of sour. I don't remember what it feels like to be young, only old enough. Love drunk to take my mind off the sober stuff. Porch talks to know the pain of the broken us. Love misconstrued, so basically we condoning lust. Donald Trump made apprentice popping, but with him in office, I love myself as much as Dennis Rodman. Bull talking bananas, but if the judges get it, H&M trying to sponsor me for the monkey business. Since it's lit.
So we really loved how you reminded everyone about all the issues and communities that were affected by sexual violence. Just that whole rundown of things that we didn't even think about, from housing to healthcare to police brutality. It affects everybody. And I'm curious, when we talk about economic justice and sexual violence, what are the important connections that people should know or look out for?
I think the most important connection is that people from economically devastated communities have less resources, and really at the intersection of my work. But really, this work is really rooted in that in a lot of ways. When I talk about getting resources to survivors of sexual violence, it's for that reason. So it's a combination of healthcare, like not having comprehensive healthcare because of the economic issues. So you have women from low wealth communities in particular who don't, if they do have resources, don't search them out because they think they can't afford them, right? Or don't search them out because they don't exist in their communities, and they don't exist because of all of the different things that are missing from these economically devastated communities. So folks who are working around economic justice should be keeping in mind that the people who are, it's not just devastating like you can't pay your rent or you can't make these things. There are ways in which folks are putting their health and their not just their physical and mental and emotional health on the line because they can't access things because of, I mean, that whole part about housing, I found that in research, the stuff about housing this week that said 71% of people who are assaulted by their landlords can't leave
That's so crazy. Like, just the idea that you can't even be safe in your own home, one.
Right.
And then you can't leave the space that you don't feel safe in, that you were attacked in.
Right. We had this, it's like financial dignity, right?
Yeah.
This is about dignity in a whole bunch of ways, but financial dignity is one of them, right? So you suffer this one indignity, and then you have the added indignity of not having the resources to do anything about it. So I feel like we need to see how our work connects, like this it's a thread that runs through all of sexual violence work, that it is economic justice is at the heart of that. Or women who can't leave, or people who can't leave their circumstances. You know this already, right? Who because they're being abused and they can't leave their circumstances. It's so married to each other.
Well, that's another thing that we wanted to ask you, actually, is about the financial abuse being so tied to sexual violence. And I feel like there's so much like mental and mindset stuff that already comes with money, and to add the sexual violence into it and the financial abuse into it. How do you help survivors kind of rebuild all of that?
I think some of the most dynamic programming that's happening around the country are programs that take both of those into account, right? So there's an organization in California called Free From, and they help survivors of intimate partner and sexual violence create economic opportunities for themselves, so they're not dependent on their abusers or their perpetrators in any kind of way. So they there's this innovative programming that's happening that's speaking to that reality I'm losing the terminology you just said.
Yeah, the financial abuse.
Financial abuse,
Yeah.
thank you.
Yeah.
And so giving people other opportunities to build their finances and things like that. I think that's some of the most innovative programming that's happening around sexual violence and intimate partner violence.
What are the most important resources when it comes to someone coming out of a financial abuse situation? Like, what's the first thing that someone should be thinking about when they're trying to help somebody out of that?
Meaning the advocate helping them.
Yeah, the advocate helping them.
Well, the first thing is empathy and compassion. I think that people oftentimes engage survivors from a place of pity, and it does not help to rebuild your dignity, financial or otherwise, if that's the framework that the person who's advocating for you is using. So I think there needs to be training around working with survivors, particularly of financial abuse, which is connected to this sexual violence and partner violence, around how to deal with the person in a way that builds their dignity. It helps them to rebuild their dignity, and it has empathy and compassion. And secondly, I think there's also, this is related to that too, there's also a way that you can do an assessment of people's needs that take into account that, what am I trying to say? Like that they're not completely devastated. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So there's a way that sometimes folks are like, it's that same cycle of pity.
Yeah.
It's like,
the oh, poor you.
yes, exactly,
Yeah.
right? So assess my needs, assess the needs the person has, and be clear about what they have, and I think amplify what they have and make a plan for what they don't have, whether that's a bank account or a job or whatever. But I do think that the work that we do in the world of sexual violence is always thinking about empathy and compassion in that kind of way, or should be, and that has to spread to other people who are, when you think about how sexual violence impacts the work that you're doing, you should always include that as well.
Yeah, I love that. And on a larger scale, what are the important economic policies that need to be changed to support victims of sexual violence? Like, what do we need to be thinking about in a big picture?
I think a lot of times it comes down to services, and I'm trying to think of specific policies, but the policies that impact the funding for particular services is really important, right? And so these underfunded comprehensive health centers in these communities, things like that are the first things that get cut.
Yeah.
When we organize around changing policy that's going to support people who are survivors, we need to think about the economic impact of that, or the impact of that in general to a particular community, how devastating that is. So it's economic policy that's already probably being fought for, but making sure that you add a lens that includes sexual violence, right? Because any economic policy you fight for is going to support people who ultimately are affected by sexual violence.
Yeah. No, I love that. And then we work with a lot of youth and deal with a lot of young women who are dealing with trauma. What can educators and communities do to support and empower them?
That's also a really good question. I think that this is related to what I was saying earlier about the compassion and empathy. I think that engaging survivors from a place of power is one of the best things you can do to support and uplift them. It's not about empowering necessarily, but it's about engaging with the power that you have and reminding folks who are survivors over and over again that your power wasn't taken from you. Somebody has chipped away at it. Somebody has tried to take it from you, but you still have it. And so our work is really about bringing people, finding new ways and better ways and easier ways to bring people back to themselves. So when you talk to young people, especially, because if somebody had got to me at 14 and given me these kind of messages, it would have changed the trajectory of my life. And I think it's important to get those messages to young people early, that these things don't define you. You're not the sum total of what happened to you, right? Like, get those messages in early, and you can tap into your own power. Like, I'm not here to give you power, you still have it. So those are the kind of things I would encourage folks who work with young people to do, to give them space to and also I feel like sometimes we don't give young people enough space to explore their own feelings. We jump right in and like, you're fine, you should do this, you should do that. And we need to create the kind of safety, like safe spaces that we talk about all the time, that allows them to try and fail. That allows them to get in touch with what they're feeling and feel that thing and be okay with it. And then then we get into the other stuff. Like, I feel like we treat children like they don't have the same cycles that we do. So I would say that too.
Yeah, no, I mean, that makes total sense, because we always talk about how you start developing a relationship with money at such a young age. You start developing a relationship with everything at such a young age, so you have to address it. Yeah.
Oh, yeah, you do. And if you are a young person who comes from an economically devastated community, your relationship with money is immediate, right? You are really conscious of, we have money, we don't have money, we have food, we don't have food, I can do this, I can't do that. So those relationships with money start early, and it's also an entry point to sexual exploitation, right? So that's another connection between economic justice and sexual violence, because so many young people I met I work in this deep South in Alabama, very poor communities, low wealth communities, if you will. And these are young people who were vulnerable to exploitation because of the lack of finances in their homes. So those are other ways that we have to be vigilant about working with young people and about creating other economic opportunities for them early. We also, like those jobs for youth and all that kind of stuff, some of youth, those are important. Yeah. Because then you have kids who feel like they have to contribute to the house, or they don't want to put a burden on the house. And so they become more vulnerable to sexual exploitation.
Oh, man. Thank you for that. We have one more question.
Okay.
So for people who want to support the Me Too movement but are not in these activist circles, what can they do to continue to support it?
That's a good question. The reason why we built our site, I have to stop saying that's a good question, but those are good questions. But the reason why we built our site the way we have, and it's a soft launch right now. We will have by April it'll be completely done. But one of the things we're building on the site is a tool for everyday people to do a community assessment. So if you put your zip code, so people ask me all the time, what can I do? How can I get involved? And then I used to just say, look for the gaps, look for the holes, look for where there's, look around and look at your lived experience. And I do think that's true, but I think folks who are not movement people don't know how to do that as well. They don't know how to identify those things. And a woman pushed back once and said, I would love to, I don't know where to start. And it made me think like, I need to reframe what I'm saying so it's more inclusive of people every day whose lives are affected by sexual violence, want to be active, but haven't grown up in this work. So what the tool will do is we created what we call an ideal community. It allows you to put your community up against the ideal community so you can see what you have and what you don't have. right? Like, do you have a rape crisis center? Do you have folks doing community organizing? Do you have politicians voting in ways that support all of that kind of stuff? And then you'll be able to, like, say, click on it, say, when you get the report card back, click and say, oh, my community doesn't have this. Are there people working to bring in who I can join? Oh, nobody's working on it. Here's a toolkit for how you can contribute. So we're building this tool because I do think that's a real, there's a privilege that we have as movement folks. It's just like, get involved. It's like a big overview. Get involved.
Yeah.
Make sure you do something.
Yeah.
Like all of these kind
But
of.
what's something,
But
right?
what's something,
No,
right? You
that's
leave
great.
people, and I was making all these speeches and then and feeling like I was rallying people, and I was leaving people like, how?
Yeah.
So that's the how, and I think in the absence of the tool, that folks can talk to people if pushed back. When you hear people making these speeches and rallying and telling you to do these things, ask those hard questions like, well, tell me how. Because some of the ways, I believe in joining organizations, I believe in joining coalitions, I believe in look for the people who are doing the work and learn from them. You don't have to create something new. Like, we're in a moment where everybody wants to create a thing. There's lots of stuff that exists. So find people doing that work and join them. That's one of the easiest ways to start if you're not a part of this work already, you know, and just keep educating yourself. So, like, I also think people need to stop jumping into movement work without understanding movement work. You know, like, there's lots of books, there's lots of blogs, there's lots of podcasts. Get some understanding of the thing that you want to join before you jump in with both feet.
Yeah.
And what is this website that you're building? Where can people find it?
It's live now, but it's going to be more stuff on there. It's metoomovement.org, but it's metoo mvmt.org.
Awesome. Thank you
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Wild woman.
Rise, wild woman. Rise. When I was a young girl, my mother told me about a wild, wild woman who lives inside of me. She sheds her skin to dance and sing on nights when the moon is full. The wild woman lives within each and every one, so listen, feel that pull. Wild woman, connected to the inner child woman. You are wise and ancient, greater than the pain. Wild woman, infinitely grateful for the rain. Wild woman, savage, fierce, untamed, remain. Wild, wild woman, connected to the inner child woman. You are wise and ancient, greater than the pain. Wild woman, infinitely grateful for the rain. Wild woman, savage, fierce, untamed, remain. Wild, wild woman. She the queen, the empress, the priestess, the goddess. She persists in a system trying to pimp her out for profit. In every breath of fire, you can feel her rage is growing. If you ain't listening to her ancient, ageless knowing. Blowing wind, flowing water. Every mother, every daughter, rising with the tide, divine feminine knows no borders. They say hell has no fury like a woman's scorn. I say heaven has no blessing like a woman reborn.
Goddess with a splash of gangster. You gon' do what I need when you get this taxter. Now you see, every wild woman you meet is fitting to be your maker. All the gift and the giver, the all in the men, the shake and the shiver, the ultimate rep of the phrase I'ma deliver. Embody the math, that's why you call my body the figure. It out, the wild, wild woman. I got power to collect the sunshine, so I can shine on you when the sun is having a hard time. Call me the wild, wild woman. Call me heat go-getter, the fire keeper of the glow. Let your daughters know it's okay to be a dreamer. Yes, figure it out, wild, wild woman. Wild women got it figured out. Got that wild, wild woman.
Connected to the inner child woman. You are wise and ancient, greater than the pain. Wild woman, infinitely grateful for the rain. Wild woman, savage, fierce, untamed, remain. Wild, wild woman, connected to the inner child woman. You are wise and ancient, greater than the pain. Wild woman, infinitely grateful for the rain. Wild woman, savage, fierce, untamed, remain wild, wild woman. Release the story of the victim, the script can be rewritten. Running with the wolves, navigating based on instinct. The mud that bursts the lotus flowers, aching for your imprint. The fruits of your accomplishments can never be forbidden. Are you overwhelmed, overworked? Remember your ambition. Respect existence or expect resistance. Global sisterhood, stand strong, a million women listen. Global sisterhood, a million women listen. No more trying to be polite. Find fulfillment when you reinstill your will to fight. When you're trying to sleep at night, let the moon be your cocoon, warriors of the light. No more trying to be polite. Find fulfillment when you reinstill your will to fight. When you're trying to sleep at night, let the moon be your cocoon. We gon' be alright.
We are remembering. We're not here to be domesticated. We are remembering. We're here to be in the forests of the wild. We are remembering. We are the sanctuary of the streams of our lives. We are here. And we're calling you, sisters, to your wildness, to your wisdom, to your truth, to your body, to the sacred place you call home, this temple of life. We are calling you. Join us, women, wise, wild, and wily.